This is a tomato. It looks vibrant and glossy, but it feels as hard as a rock. Tomatoes used to be sweet, tangy, and bursting with juice. Just sprinkle on some sugar and they were the perfect summer treat to satisfy your cravings. But at some point, tomatoes became thick-skinned and rock hard, with barely any juice and a flavor that's neither sweet nor sour. They're all for show. You can only use them for stir-fries or soups. So have our taste buds become too picky? Or have tomatoes actually lost their flavor? Today, let's get to the bottom of this. This is the ancestor of the tomato, the currant tomato. Native to South America, it's even more miniature than today's cherry tomatoes. After centuries of human domestication, by the mid-20th century, tomatoes had actually become quite delicious. So why did the flavor take a turn for the worse? Well, it's because we humans are too obsessed with looks. Before 1930, many ripe tomatoes actually had green shoulders, which refers to the green patch near the stem. No matter how ripe, the rest was, that part stayed green. While these tomatoes were incredibly sweet, their homely appearance and uneven color made it hard for them to fetch a premium price. Then, one day, American growers discovered a mutant variety that was perfectly and uniformly red all over. Under supermarket lights, these all red tomatoes were pure temptation, looking much more appetizing than those with patchy green faces. So, to cater to the market, breeding experts began aggressively selecting for these uniformly red varieties. As for what happened next, we're all living it now. Nature gave us a harsh reality check for our shallow preference of choosing looks over flavor. Scientists discovered that in our quest for a perfectly red tomato, we inadvertently deactivated two key genes, glucone and GLA2, specifically GLK2, which is originally responsible for chlorophyll production. With less chlorophyll, photosynthesis is weakened, though the sugar accumulated in the tomatoes naturally decreases. Simply put, in pursuit of that perfectly even red color, we've effectively crippled the tomato's ability to produce sugar. If turning red is to please the eye and becoming larger and firmer is all about pleasing the wallet, the ripening of a tomato can be divided into 6 stages, from mature green to full red. Nowadays, to facilitate long-distance shipping to other provinces, they are often picked during the first 3 stages. They only turn red inside a shipping box. This makes them firmer, more durable for transport, and less prone to rotting. However, the sugar aroma and some of the nutrients can never reach the levels they would have attained if vine ripened. The tomatoes we ate when we were kids were usually locally sourced or homegrown, and they weren't picked until the final 2 stages of ripening. But today, tomatoes might be shipped from Shouguang, Shandong to Beijing, or even from Yunnan all the way to Heilongjiang. If they were the thin-skinned, juicy, soft varieties, they would be crushed during the bumpy, long-haul trip. Rot means loss, and loss means a waste of money. That's why many modern tomatoes are not just picked early. Breeders have also maxed out the firmness skill tree. As a result, modern commercial varieties must be shelf-stable, sturdy, and large in size. But the larger the fruit, the more diluted the sugar content becomes. The logic is simple. Within the same growth cycle, the total sugar a plant can produce is limited. If you force it to grow as big as a fist, the sugar gets spread thin, so it naturally tastes bland. And for the sake of firmness, the volatile compounds in tomatoes responsible for that signature aroma, such as the aldehydes and ketones that give off those pleasant scents, have been gradually lost through generations of genetic screening. This has led to the common tomatoes we see today having thick flesh and tough skins, but incredibly bland flavors. They're less juicy too, and no longer ideal for just snacking on. Over the years, tomatoes have indeed become healthier and more robust, living longer lives, but their tomato lives have lost their spark. Objectively speaking, however, modern agriculture's push for extreme industrialization thus actually quite unavoidable. In the past, farmers grew crops primarily for their own consumption, or at most for sale at the local town market. Today, agricultural companies, driven by profit margins, prioritize the fruits that look appealing and are easy to transport. So rather than focusing on taste, growers prioritize varieties with high yields and ideally disease resistance and ease of harvest. Supermarkets also want varieties that are large, bright red, and attractive, with a long shelf life that can last for days. The most interesting part is that we consumers aren't exactly innocent either. While we say taste is everything, our actions tell a different story. In the supermarket, we still subconsciously reach for the largest, reddest, and glossiest tomato. So with all these commercial interests aligning, flavor genius have been pushed to the sidelines. Fortunately, as living standards have improved in recent years, our palates have become more refined. Size and color alone can no longer fool us. Varieties like Provence and strawberry tomatoes, which focus on flavor, are gaining popularity, even with a premium price tag, and consumers are willing to pay for it. Breeding experts have also been trying to save the tomato, finding ways to boost flavor without sacrificing yield as much as possible. Since we know which genes are missing, let's bring them back by crossbreeding commercial varieties with unpalatable wild currant tomatoes or heirloom varieties kept by farmers themselves. Scientists have successfully reintroduced the Tomloxy Kenny into certain commercial varieties. Although these tasty varieties currently only account for 5 to 6 of the market, and with their thicker skin and lower yields, they remain relatively expensive. Still, it's a promising start. And to be fair, the reason we feel today's tomatoes don't taste right is not just that mainstream varieties have changed. We've changed too. We thought tomatoes were sweeter when we were kids. One reason is that those varieties really were sugar-rich. On the other hand, in an era of scarcity, any treat felt special. Nostalgia has added a filter to those memories. Moreover, as we age, the number of taste buds on our tongues decreases. Taste buds are most sensitive in childhood and decline as we get older. Plus, with our daily diet of oily, salty, and spicy takeout, our taste buds have long been overstimulated, making them less sensitive to subtle, natural, sweet, and sour flavors. Ultimately, the flavorless tomatoes we complain about today are actually the result of our own past choices. We loved tomatoes as kids not only because the varieties had better flavor, but also because life moved at a slower pace back then. We ate local, seasonal produce, perhaps even grown in our own backyards. That taste is a mix of sunlight, soil, and memories of family. But then, as cities continued to expand and populations grew, we had to transport vegetables from thousands of kilometers away. For efficiency and to minimize spoilage, flavor had to be sacrificed, turning the tomato into a standardized industrial product. But it is no longer a fruit with a heart. But the fact that we miss that old flavor now shows we are now able to pursue a higher quality of life. We are no longer satisfied with just having food we want to eat well. Therefore, modern agricultural science is now trying to restore the soul of the tomato. In a few years, perhaps that juicy, bursting bite and the perfect sweet and sour taste of childhood will become the new mainstream. But by then, we might ironically start to miss these modern tomatoes, tasteless but big and beautiful and incredibly shelf-stable. After all, human nostalgia has always been this fickle and irrational.